Bipixel said.
Oh, we
that,
live.
it'll be there.
Hey everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're live.
I was
I
just.
thought we were just hanging out. Oh, you said Bob, there was. I thought it was. Oh, I'll just be able to straight. Hey everyone, how we going? I thought we were just chatting. Oh, cool.
It's just that chill
I mean,
moment
we are.
where
Isn't
you're
that the
like.
point?
It's just that chill moment where you're waiting for everyone to come in too. You're just like.
Yeah, I was waiting for like countdown or something and then go into it. No, we just do it.
Hey, VOD watchers.
Well, you wanted it to be quick too, right? You're like, I want a
Yeah,
quickie
that's-
tonight.
Cool. Hey everyone, how we doing?
All right, host CJ, take over. What's on the billet tonight?
Well, I'm sure you've got some slides. Or do you have any? Is it just talk? Do we have slides or something? Do you have anything up?
We got some
Anything
prediction
pre-made?
slides.
Fresh trim,
Whoops.
yummy by the way, looking good.
Thank you, man. I went out literally before the show to go get a haircut, and
We all get some Craigasms. That's a lovely little fade he's got going on back there. I like it.
get prepped for the
Been
weekends.
a while since I had a haircut.
Well, same for me. I had mine before Corona, so February was the last haircut I had. Yeah, so we have predictions, and that's basically it. I've got this. I could get rid of SilentEcho at some point. But yeah, Silent's not going to be here for the OCE segment. He said, "You know what? I'm too smart for OCE predictions. You got to go down a few levels."
I'd just be
here."
reading Liquipedia as we went along, guys. You know? Like, I'd be great if you wanted to explain OCE to a 5-year-old, but otherwise, I'm really not very helpful in that segment.
To be fair, like some of that's the same for NA for me. Like they're the least followed
So many tournaments.
region that I have, and there's so many like, well,
So
you know,
much
with the new
stuff.
format, there's new there's new players that I haven't seen a lot of.
Yeah, keeping track of just EU is hard enough. To also keep track of NA, you're committing, you know, an extra 15 hours a week or something just to stay on top of things. So I think it's we're finally entering an era of Rocket League where you simply can't watch everything that's on, which is much more like, you know, normal sports and stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of cool as well because then you can actually have like EU fans and NA fans that are kind of separated, which I think is good from a broadcast perspective because my theory is that Sonics will eventually go to having like a full EU broadcast in order to cover the sheer amount of EU games that are going to be happening.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense, especially if it's, you know, something that Epic do that Psyonix then uses. You know, Epic opens up a European broadcast studio, they use it for their Fortnite stuff, whatever other stuff they want to do, and then Rocket League is in there on the weekends. I could totally see that happening.
Yeah, but surely Fortnite's dead and it's just Rocket League's going to be for Epic's main game, right?
Please,
I don't know, man.
please.
My daughter brings it up every time I talk to her, so I don't feel like it's dead yet.
Is she playing like mobile or something? Or is she,
No, she mostly just watches on YouTube, and she sticks to Minecraft and Roblox herself.
That's sick. Yummy haircut, Pog. Yeah, we finally got it, boys. It's been years in the making.
It's good that there's like a lot of games, but I did like the bit like every single league play of EU and NA. I'd watch every single game, but now it is impossible pretty much with all like the qualifiers. Depending on what you watch, if you just choose to watch the finals, then it's fine. But there's so many games right now every week. It's crazy.
I feel it's literally impossible, right? Because the stream doesn't even cover every single series. So even if you wanted to, you'd have to go into replays to watch them all.
I think replays is going to be faster, though. There is that aspect of it. You know, with the broadcast, there's a lot of dead time in between games and stuff like that, which, you know, if you're looking at the game purely for analysis or, you know, coaching purposes and stuff like that, or, you know, just want to see what happened without sort of any flavor on top of it, then it's much faster to go through the replays. But even then, I mean, you're looking at downloading, 250 replays or something a week? It's ridiculous.
Do you still think we're missing out on having like an actual league, like any kind of league play where you can, you know, follow a story and watch every series? Or do you think this is good?
I think the grid has kind of replaced that, right? Like if you want that follow, and now you can actually follow it much more closely than you could with league play, because now you can just sit on one team's perspective all the way through a bracket, which, you know, back when we were still doing open qualifiers and stuff wasn't something you could do back then. And now we have a bracket every week in Europe and NA, which is very reliable. I've been doing the Singularity stream, and it's fun to follow a team all the way through and kind of feel the rise and fall that as a caster, you know, or an audience member, you wouldn't necessarily see, like how was that series for that team mentally when they were playing off the stream.
Yeah.
because now you can watch through, and focus on your favorite team, which is neat.
How are you enjoying your games in the grid, CJ?
Yeah, it's been great so far. Loving the grid. It's just, it's good. I'm not going to complain. I think OCE, we've had a good start. They've introduced obviously the 3 splits, a similar system without the grid, obviously. But I think it's going to be good for the region, and it's going to promote teams sort of sticking together and hopefully some growth and improvement through the lower teams, I guess, in the region, which will obviously improve the top teams as well. So it can only be good things. This new stuff. It's just the fact that I'd love. It's sort of selfish, but I want to be able to watch everything for EU and NA and the leagues and stuff. It's easy to follow. It's just even just like looking at Wikipedia now with the field. There's like Division 2, Division 3, Division 1, all these different sections to follow. I don't know I know probably people are able to keep track of it, but for me, I don't know. I just tune into Twitter and the Reddit to see like the results and if anything cool happened and if I need to watch anything.
That's fair enough. Like I'm pretty sure that OC will get something similar to the grid, and it's just in the making. But I guess focusing on EU, how much? I know obviously SilentEcho, you've watched a lot of EU, but how much have you been watching EU of late, CJ?
Not too. I watched sort of like obviously Vitality. I think they got 4th in the first. What do you call it? The first tournament of the split. Regional. Everyone, they were sort of like, the first regional, they were sort of expected to be the favourites, and there's been a few upsets, BDS playing. So I've watched a few of those games, and been watching Oxygen because I enjoy watching that team, Yummy's old flame, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So a little bit, probably more than NA, I'd say, just because the time zone generally get to watch a little bit late at night.
Yeah, and for you, SilentEcho, I guess you've been watching much from a specific perspective.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm looking at everything through the lens of Magnifico now. I was saying before we went live, after stopping coaching Ghost, took that time to rest and relax and recuperate, and did not care about Rocket League at all for about 6 months, and came back in really fresh when I start hearing about these changes happening, and the Magnifico guys are in the DMs asking me to coach them, and I think, oh great, I mean, perfect time to come back. But man, is the change dramatic, in terms of just like the sheer amount of quality of data we're going to be able to get out of this, because League play, there was 7 series for a team, 7 series, and then it went up to 9, and it's just What information are we getting out of potentially 21 games, 27 games or something, whereas now we're getting that per week per team, and it's a lot more to go through. But I'm really excited about what people in the sort of more like calculated GG ballchasing.com style of things are going to be able to do with like that much more competitive information, games that they're sure people are trying their hardest, there's stuff on the line, it means something. So many more games have meaning now than we used to have.
Yeah, and I'd say, and obviously you use stats a lot, but CJ, as a player who doesn't have a coach who's looking to always improve the team, how much are you relying on stats like from ball chasing and whatnot?
We're pretty big on it. Like, I auto-upload all the replays, so we always have every single replay. We don't have to bother about saving them too much. But I think it's good to sort of look at stats. We not too much in scrims, but tournaments, we always sort of look at stats and see what's going on. Probably more like, not the main stats, but more like boost usage and like field control and stuff like that. We'll look at that off percentage in opponent's half to sort of see, if we did lose a game or something, whether it was we probably should have won it based on those sort of stats and how much boost we're having, how much control and how much possession, stuff like that. But apart from that, it's more just watching replays with the team and more visually what's going on in terms of rotations and decision making.
Fair enough. And let's sort of like start talking a bit about Magnifico in specific. So I'd say, like, SilentEcho, you're obviously the expert at this. These guys are people that we haven't really seen a lot of. Greasy retired and come back, and everyone's really interested in him. But he still came top 4 against all odds. And for those who don't know, came, 8th in the first stage?
Yeah, it was...
barely scraped.
It wasn't great in the... It scraped through on the first stage a little bit, and then... we were able to come through after that, which was, stressful, as you might imagine.
How would you, like, as a team themselves, like, how are you describing the team as a team and also the individual players?
So the team is capable of suppressing other teams' playstyles in a way that I haven't seen a lot of before. It was something that we occasionally got close to with Ghost, but never really kind of had control of that. But when the Magnifico guys are playing how they want to, Greasy's holding down the midfield, and Atomic's getting these nuts touches, and Dementia's cleaning everything up, it's almost impossible for a team to find a way to break through that pressure and kind of stop them from creating opportunities. Obviously, we still have some work to do on actually converting those opportunities, but when there's just constant opportunities in front of your net, it's very scary for the defense. They're out of boost, they're out of resources, they've got no agency over the situation.
Well, how surprised were you that you even managed to come in top 4 in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, it took a lot to kind of get there. In terms of like mental strength and that kind of thing, there's a lot of reverse sweeps, a lot of series that should have been ended game 3, game 4, but we're still going the distance into these overtimes, and those are hard. It's playing a really good game of Rocket League and losing it is fine, but playing a really good game of Rocket League that you have in your hands and then losing it is really hard to move on to the next game. So then you have people going quiet in the team chat, and people have to start getting everybody ramped back up, which obviously Greasy's great at because he's just been doing it for such a long time.
Well, you guys had to deal with 2 losses in both the first 2 stages.
Yeah, we scraped through pretty much universally. But still getting to the top 4, which is just proof that at the moment anybody can make it, I think, and that we've got a decent shot. What we're finding is that the teams with the most experience are the teams that are playing the best against us, which seems obvious, but it's also an element of like they just understand how to adapt to playstyles better, which is that kind of thing that you learn as a team over time. You can have individual players that understand how to do that, but the team needs to shift its focus at the same time in unison, otherwise it breaks the rhythm of the game. And the more experienced teams that have been going for longer and more successful and playing more competitive series at higher levels, those guys know how to adapt under pressure, and then they're able to stop us from stopping them from doing what they want to do, which is a lot less fun for us, but quite good for them.
What's the current climate in E? Obviously, everyone on the outside's doing like still Vitality's, the team to sort of stop, but obviously they did get top 4. They didn't, make the final in the first regional. What's the sort of viewpoint from like, obviously you're more inside the scoop, you're inside the know in EU, like who are the top teams right now? Obviously BDS did take out the first regional, but like are they considered a really top team? What's the sort of standings right now for EU?
Yeah, I think that BDS is definitely one that everybody's looking at pretty closely, just purely because they've been able to take games off people that they really shouldn't have been able to take games off under first impression. Monkey Moon's absolutely fantastic. Mark by 8 is just so quick off his feet, and as a team, they have a presence of mind that is really hard to counter. Because when you've just got these players who are just reacting so fast to the unexpected, they're playing the game that's in front of them all the time. Instead, they're never getting distracted by the game that's in their head, and that's really tough to deal with as their opposition. But then you've got top blokes with and you've got this Archie kid who just hits every single thing that he goes for a full day. That's not supposed to happen. We've hardly ever seen that happen before. Just somebody have just such a universal 100% record through an entire tournament event across multiple weekends. He was just hitting time after time after time the exact touches that he wanted, and that kind of consistency is terrifying as somebody coaching an opposition team.
Well, it looks like to me, and I want to see what your thought on it. Archie basically single-handedly defeated you guys in that semi-final.
100%. We couldn't deal with it. Because at a certain point with the stuff that he's going for, you have to expect him to whiff at some point. So you start preparing for that mentally, whether you should be or not. It starts to creep in that he can't keep doing this to us, but he did over and over again. And I mean, fair play to him. It was fantastic. I was talking to Rams about it the next day, and in the comms, it was just such a joy to listen to, because it was just Archie just saying what he wanted to do and then watching it happen.
I mean, CJ, you have games like that too. I remember some of those like in Spring Series, right?
Yeah, a couple of rough games, Yummy. Thank you for bringing that up. Sticking to EU though, let's not.
Yeah, don't change the subject.
Yeah, let's stick to EU. So obviously Oxygen. I'm just sort of just going through the results now and just sort of trying to piece together what's currently happening with this scene again. Obviously, Vitality is still a top team on the day. They got top 4. It's probably nothing to be ashamed about. But then you got Oxygen. Obviously, they didn't make it out of this first or the
they
top
didn't make
16.
top 16. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the top 16 or top, yeah. Top 32?
They were in top 32. That's where they were invited to, and then they didn't make it into top 16. Same with Liquid. Yet Liquid Oxygen have done really well in the grid, coming second and top 4, where they lost to Vitality. And on the other side, Liquid are winning the field by a pretty significant margin. So both of them, I'm assuming, are doing reasonably well in scrims still.
Yeah, I haven't been in a lot of scrims, I'm going to be honest, because it's just sort of with so many competitive games to look at. Scrims is more for keeping the team in one piece, and I mean we've almost got a like the place to try things out really right now is the field rather than anywhere else, because that's got something on the line, stuff's happening with that, and people care about those games. So that's kind of, I think, more of the lab right now for comp. Whereas scrims are much more of a sort of keep the team dynamic going, making sure that we're playing, keep staying in touch. It's more about the team aspect thing than like how we're actually doing in the scrims. At least from my point of view, for the players, it's important to get the wins and feel like they're doing well in the scrims. But I think that honestly, I could lose every scrim and not care as long as we win on the day, right? So. If you lose, you tend to learn something. You make mistakes, you learn something. If we're playing perfectly in scrims, I'm terrified about what's going to happen at the weekend.
So what's the pressure feel like compared to sort of a league play in these sort of regional events? Because obviously the argument for all the RLCS teams every time is when they're playing, say, a Astro qualifier and they lose to a pickup team. It's like, oh, well, you've got no pressure on you, sort of thing. And we're seeing now with these top 32 that teams like Liquid, Oxygen, your Barcelona, stuff like that, they're not even making the top 16. Is that like a pressure thing, or just the fact that everyone's like sort of caught up and everyone gets their opportunity now to play these top teams and show what they're made of?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a very insulated competitive scene for a long time in Rocket League. It's been very, very difficult to get FaceTime against these teams in competitive environments. If you look at league play, you get the promotion tournament as an RLRS team. That's your aspiration. Like on the moment where you're playing for your literal livelihood, that's the first time you come up against an RLCS team in a competitive environment. And that was the case for season after season after season, We started getting more majors and stuff like DreamHack started happening, and that was a little bit better. But it was still, very much like, oh, we're going to take you out of a place, fly you across the world. You're going to play Rocket League for 3 days, come away from that. And what are you learning in that situation, playing against those teams? Not a huge deal, because there's so many other factors that you can't control that are sort of making it difficult to draw conclusions that are meaningful for you when you go back to your normal field of play. Now we've got so many tournaments and there's so much crossover, teams can be in the field, teams can be going to be able to try and qualify back into the grid at the end of that. You've got the regionals every time having these slots that are opening up, and it's there's always that chance that some team's going to come out of nowhere, and all three of the players, they've never done well in ranked, but for some reason, like, they linked up for this one thing, and it was just the magical partnership, and they're going to have some kind of like honeymoon run and try to be relevant for 6 weeks afterwards, and it's not going to work out. But we're going to be able to see those stories now, which we just haven't had the opportunity for.
Well, people aren't able to come out of nowhere. Obviously, they came out of nowhere for this top 32, including Magnifico. You guys came out of nowhere, right? Yep. But, after a few of these, after a few of these, right, like, they're not coming out of nowhere from now on. So are a lot of these people. We actually get to see those teams in action because they're playing up against these RLCS teams. And even before, even in scrims, it was very insular. You didn't get to scrim RLCS teams because they were like, well, the most quality matches is against all the RLCS teams. But in terms of matches and stories as well, Magnifico aren't in the grid. So how much of an impact do you think that's got on you guys?
I think it's both a good and bad thing. It's still a very new team, so I'm a little cautious about overworking them. I don't want to lose whatever magic brought them together and is successful for them. If I come into a team and they're doing well, I told them to change 3 things and they did well on 2 of those, and we got top 4. And that was, when we got top 4, I'd been coaching them for 9 days. So it's not a lot of time. It's still very new. We're still figuring out what the relationship is. Obviously, there's no organization there, so there's a limit to how much physical amount of time I can put into things that are, rather than into other endeavors. And balancing all of that and figuring out, what does the team need right now is kind of tough. I'm kind of glad we don't have the grid, because that's a distraction that right now, I think it's more important for us to focus on what we're doing and making sure that we're ready for these regionals, which are really important. I think the grid to some extent is a little bit of a distraction for these teams. I love that it exists, but I'm kind of glad we as a new team aren't playing in it.
It's a lot of series too to commit to. Like, I mean, CJ,
it's long days.
Yeah, CJ, like how many series in a day can you play, right?
For how many? It depends. If it's obviously best of 3, best of 5. It's probably, I don't know. It'd be pretty.
I mean, everything's best of 5 now, right?
Best of 5, best of 7, yeah.
Just sort of depends. In terms of like intense series, which I guess all of EU is intense. Probably no more than 3, I'd say, and 4's probably pushing it in a day. I don't know. It sort of depends. Yeah, I mean, it's a very open-ended question you've thrown at me here. I'm not sure. Some days I might be feeling it.
Listen, as a professional co-analyst, CJ, I figure you can take the open-ended questions and really expand on them.
I really think that, say, if you play 4 games, you're thinking, you're starting to get a little bit tired. 4 series is probably, a little bit too much.
Yeah, especially if there's breaks between rounds and stuff like that. You're having to take time out. Sometimes when you go down into the lower late, it means that you're sitting around for a while the earlier rounds of the lower finish. And we're looking right now for these teams in some weeks. They're playing 3 days, 2 to 6 series.
Yeah, with the grid then. 2 regionals in a row.
2 regionals, Saturday, Sunday regional situation. Then you've got the field that, teams are also wanting to try and stay on top of, and, make sure that they're making use of all of the avenues that they have open to them. I mean, it's a great time to make a little bit of money playing some Rocket League, because, I mean, we're finally at the point where the pro teams have too much to do to pick up the little stuff.
Yeah, you feel like you've got way too much going on right now, CJ?
No, I don't have much going on at all, Yummy. Renos here. Obviously,
first world problems over here,
yeah, we've just got the regionals. We wish we'd have these like little, 5K tournaments that, that you don't want to play in, but they'd be like gold to OCE, as it always is. But no, it is really good to see, because it's sort of like, I don't know, sort of like other esports where it's not just the Premier Leagues. There's these other little ones, and they're actually worth money. Like you should be able to make make a living is like a loose term. I don't know what
you can make enough money to dedicate the time.
Yeah.
You can make enough money to dedicate the time and not do other things. When you might need a part-time job or be delivering pizzas or whatever, you can play some Rocket League instead.
While still not being like a top team. You should just be like a good team and make that money.
Semi-pros.
Yeah.
We also have from the field of Renault Vitality. I just noticed are now way out in front of that. Ahead of Team Liquid. It looked like Team Liquid were going to stand on their 7-1 and just hope that was enough to keep that first place, but they've played one more as well. Is there any strategizing, or are you guys using it more as like a scrim as well?
More of a like a structured scrim, situation. Getting more. It's providing a nice little like ramp from like scrim pressure to comp pressure. Now we have field pressure, which is kind of just like a nice little halfway point to, it's a base station to get used to climbing to the top of the mountain from.
Yeah. Well, I think in terms of EU, do you have any final words about, I guess, how Magnifico are going to go in the next regional? What your expectations are there?
Well, I mean, I think they're going to do really well. I don't think that there's been enough time for people to figure out how to stop them. I'm currently working on the game plan for what happens when that happens, which is why I'm not sort of interfering too much right now. I'll let them keep doing what's working while it's working. I'm not going to fix something that's not broken. I'm going to keep them pointed in the right direction and give them options and tools that they can choose to use. But ultimately, right, they're the guys on the field. They're the guys holding the controllers. They're the guys who have to make the decisions in the moment. I'm a coach watching on 10 seconds of stream latency. What am I going to be able to do in comms? It's in between the games, and the opportunity to sort of bridge them to the next moment. But also, they're so good at that already. I was going to say something. I was actually talking. Really embarrassing. I was talking for like 30 seconds between one of the games. I was muted on Discord. And then Greasy just said like the 3 core points that I was trying to get across, and I was like, I didn't even need to say anything anyway, trying to figure out how to condense it down into the remaining time. So I think that they're going to do really well. It's the future that I've got my eyes on right now.
Yeah. Can you give us a team to watch for EU then? As someone in the know, perhaps from streams or something like that.
Top blokes, 100%. Yeah. Can you imagine what's going to happen if Archie's teammates start expecting him to hit those shots?
Yeah,
let's be honest. Half of the opportunities people had against top blokes was his team not having any clue he was going to be able to pull it off. And they're prepping for him to fail. If they start prepping for him to succeed all the time, that's going to be a serious problem for everybody.
I guess then before we move on, then a little interesting extra question is how much do you think Mouse are hurting knowing they picked up Fruity of all people instead of keeping Archie?
Yeah, I mean, that's it's tough. Mouse are in a really weird spot right now, and I don't think anybody really knows what's going on with them or where they're going from there. And it's going to be interesting. That's the nice thing about the season is that it's not a single storyline per season per team. Now we have the depth and also the width in the competitive scene that we can have Mouse not doing so great at the beginning of the split, but they can be the comeback story at the end of the split that goes on to do well in the major. And there's just so many games, guys. I don't know what to do. I need another me. I need one of those what's the hourglass thing in Harry Potter? I need one of those.
Yeah.